Welcome, Eric, to Cup of Joe. How are you, man?
Doing well today, Joe. How about yourself?
Doing good. So, Eric, you're in commercial real estate, and I found that whole topic is intriguing because I don't know enough about it. I'm in residential, and while it's important to know what's going on in residential, I think as we talk about, our business is failing, our business is going out of business. What's happening. Who might know better than someone who's working sales and leases for all those folks? So I'm glad you could join us, man. I hope it's good.
No, absolutely appreciate you having me on, man.
So Thomas Duke is your company that you work for, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Thomas Duke, how you got into why'd you get in commercial? Like how'd that get going for you?
So the Thomas Duke Company is a third generation real estate company based in the Farmington Hills. Um, I've been here now for 11 years. Uh, Before me, my dad was here for, I think, I don't want to age him too much, but probably 20 years prior to that. And
Okay.
so it was one of those deals that, I interned here in the summer times in college. Was pretty involved in the business by the time I graduated, and this was kind of always going to be the next step for me. So it's started in 2009. So that was a little bit of a learning adjustment. Half the people that I think that, my dad or Tom or anybody else has been dealing with, when I came into the business, they were like, what are you doing? What are you doing to this kid? This is, the world's falling apart. And, fortunately, I think that it's been a nice ride since then. And, obviously things have been up, up, up. So
Well, I mean, I can't speak to the commercial side, but I would imagine if you were able to get in and weather the storm from the mid 2000s to the like 2011, 12, maybe 13 on commercial, I have to imagine that things are better because I mean, my take on your business is that it's very relationship driven. Um, I know there's a few sites out there like LoopNet or something like that that the general person could jump on and maybe try to find something, but I mean, there's not like a big MLS system that syndicates to a commercial Zillow, so to speak. So people need commercial agents, and you guys know about things that are happening and things like that. Is that accurate?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a, just like you guys as well, though. It's a relationship basis or a business, and the people that that you perform for, that have a track record with, generally those people will come back, and work with you in the future, whether that be on selling the building that you sold them, or if it's an investment property, if always trying to look for the next one, coming back to you and helping to find it. So yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's relationship based. We do have CoStar, which would be the most similar thing, I think, to your MLS, which is just it's a multi listing system that our company pays for, and it gets us some access to basically everything that's on the market, which is a huge, very very helpful tool. But again, there's nothing that really can replace a good client or somebody you've done business with in the past.
Sure, but I guess my thought was also from like the consumer standpoint. Um, I think I know actually in real estate, it normally starts with an online search before, even if it's someone who has a relationship. You and I recently did close a transaction together, so presumably, if you were going to sell your house in a couple of years, I get the phone call. Um, but even before you make that call to me, you probably jump on a site and look and see what's out there because you're thinking about selling. You got to buy something or rent.
Hmm.
You got to go somewhere, right? So you start with that search. If I'm thinking about starting a new business, or I need a real estate office, for example, there's not like a Zillow, Realtor, Redfin, site to go to find that, other than a few. But again, they're not completely syndicated the way the MLS syndicates to those other sites. Uh,
Correct. Yeah. I mean, there would be nothing that I guess would be consumer based that is a free service. So, like in terms of like a Zillow or something like that, that anyone could just log into. There really is not going to be anything that shows everything on the market. There'll be some listings and that type of stuff, but yeah, I would agree with you.
so how do people find you? I mean, it's got to be more than just relationships.
Well, fortunately, if you're in like the areas that I have a number of listings in, generally we like to keep a lot of inventory and like to be as visible as possible. And so, for instance, I've worked in Lyon Township, Novi, South Lyon, Wixom, Northville. I've worked there my entire career, and so the the pond is not so big that if you're just driving around, you're likely to see what some stuff that we have, and we keep a really good inventory of everybody that we've ever talked to or ever inquired about a property, kind of in our territory. And so most of these people will have talked to us at some point or reached out to us on a property that we're selling.
Okay, that makes sense. And it's a little different because it's less casual. In my business, people like to look at houses. I had a lady helping with my kids today while I was at work, and even she was like, one of the most fun things I can do is go with friends when they're buying houses, just so I can see them. So nobody says that about commercial until maybe the finished
Oh,
product.
you'd be surprised, Joe. You'd be surprised. We get our fair share of tire kickers too, man.
Oh man, that's rough. Especially to take you to a property. At least with online, all you've done is gone online, and even if it's my own website, I don't care if you view 300 properties. I don't normally call you until I know that you want to buy a house. I might send you a couple emails if I see that you've looked at 300 properties and just say, "Hey, are you thinking about buying?" But outside of that, I won't bother you too much. But to show up at some commercial sites. It's gotta be interesting.
Yeah, man, you haven't seen my Facebook page recently. It's ever since we moved into our new place. I can't scroll for like 2 seconds without seeing some sort of ad about a new development going up somewhere, just because we did look up a bunch of stuff. And
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big thing, and I kind of alluded to it when we got started, is like there's a concern, maybe unwarranted, maybe not, about what's happening with retailers. Being anywhere from a store to a restaurant to the mall. And while you may not have all the answers, so to speak, I mean, what's projecting in your industry? Whether it's good or bad. I mean, you don't have to sugarcoat anything. Like, what is really the expectation moving forward?
well, obviously, if I knew the answers to that, then I would be, I don't know how many times a millionaire over. But I do think that this is going to be the next few months are going to be really telling, because I think a lot of the safety nets that were here at the beginning of this whole shutdown are now gone. I think there's certain industry types that on the retail side are going to just get hit, and there's not really much that can be really done about that. It's simple money coming in versus money going out. And so if you're a restaurant owner right now, I really really feel for you. If you're a landlord of a restaurant owner right now, I really really feel for you. I think there's going to be a correction in the big box market to some extent, just because I think the traffic just seems like it's been down for years. And in that case, I don't really blame the shutdown as much as it's just that was an industry that was going, it seemed to be going by the wayside for a while now. And if this was a thing that, if it was standing on the edge of a cliff and this was a thing that pushed it over for a few of those type of retailers, then I guess that's it. But it was going kind of heading in that direction, kind of regardless. The restaurant industry is something different. That was thriving. It was doing well, and I think that we will see a number of. I think we will see a number of closures there. I personally don't think it will be as bad as maybe some of the doomsday people out there. But that's just because we talk to landlords every day, people that own the retail centers or the buildings that these restaurants occupy, and everyone that I talk to that's been an experienced landlord through this thing has given their tenants some sort of break, because they know that it's not something that's at all in their control.
Sure. Which I guess is good and nice, right? Because um, we all are in a business, so it's important to generate revenue and income and profits. But at the same time, we all are people too, and so um,
Exactly.
you have to mix those two a little bit. Not necessarily personal in business, but just having some reasonable, approach, right?
My other point with that is just that like it does go along the lines of being a good person as well. But if they were to take the opposite type of approach, and let's say that they held their tenants' feet to the fire during this time,
Hmm.
you're not. I mean, most of these spaces are built out so specialized for whether it's a gym or a restaurant or any other industry that's been having a difficult time. Their spaces are built out so specifically for that use that the only logical way to backfill it would be to find another one. Well, it's not. I don't think it's a tremendous time to try to find another one of those. So you're better off rather than allowing an 8-month, 9-month period to leave your building vacant. You're better off trying to work with the people that were already there that you have some history with.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I at one point in life, I did, lease a small commercial space for warehousing, and prior to that, I was looking into various types of retail, like vitamin shops, coffee shops, things like that. And so I had those conversations with some of the franchises or whatever about build out. And yeah, to your point, you got to find the right place, even from that side. Even though it can be built out, it still has to be the right size, the right footprint, all those things. If it's already built out um, to be a McDonald's, no other restaurant really looks like McDonald's. So that makes it kind of difficult, and
Exactly.
um, it would be best to let the McDonald's stay there unless they couldn't.
Yeah, unless it was just like a corporately mandated, they have to shut it down. Your best, although I don't think McDonald's is having a very difficult time paying their bills right now. Your
Sure.
best bet though would be to especially if it's a highly specialized build out, to try to do what you can to keep the tenant that's already there, rather than trying to go out into what could be a challenging, at least in the short term, what could be a challenging market to try to get to backfill.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I mean that's a good point. And how long is a normal turnover? I mean, normal market, there's no COVID going on, stuff like that. We're in 2020 and things are just continuing the same trends that they were going from the last few years. You get a new listing for some sort of building, and I'm sure this is, very not universal, right? Because a 100,000 square foot building is much different than a 2,000 square foot building, things like that. But just generally speaking, how long do you have to hold a listing in your industry?
And it is a tough question to answer, because I think a lot of it has to do with location. If you, for instance, Milf Road 96, which is where we did a deal with the Lion Oaks Plaza there with what used to be Pure Sleep and the Cottage Inn and all that stuff. If I had a sister building to that right down the street, I think I could probably fill that, um, you know, in a reasonably short time period. And that's, you're talking about 30,000 square feet that
Mhm.
we did down there with, I think, among probably 13 different tenants. The issue is, if you get into especially like older retail centers, older office buildings, that type of stuff, there's more of a fight for cost at that point. And the fight for cost, generally, if there's a decent amount of vacancy along the corridor the building is, then they could have 5-10 buildings on the list, and that means that the most expensive of those 5 to 10 probably is going to be vacant for a while. I guess to wrap it up, we generally ask for like a 6-month listing period. We're confident during that time that we would either fill the space or we'd have enough feedback from the market to know what the issues are with it that need to be fixed in order to get it filled.
And then from there, I guess, my side, when I do residential, and this isn't every residential agent, I mean, I'm very marketing focused, right? I'm into Facebook ads and other ads and email blasts and even postcards and, all kinds of different stuff. Um, what does that look like from the commercial side? I've got a new building, even if it's those buildings, even if it's the sister building you just said, would be ideal. Um, how do you get that word out?
Honestly, Joe, a lot of the same. I mean, we have a database here with just, we keep track of whether it be retailers, office users, industrial users, investors. We keep track of everybody we know is active in the market, first day of getting a new listing, we will likely send out some sort of marketing piece to them, as well as the I guess one of the bigger differences I think between our two industries is that when I take a listing, there's only gonna be, what, 30, 40, I think we have 40,000, 50,000 people on our database. There's going to be, that is your set pool of buyers or tenants, right?
Hmm.
Someone from that list, or if they're not, in our database, then they're at least in the commercial industry professionals. Someone from there is probably going to be your buyer, unless it's completely someone just starting brand new. With you, your list of potential buyers is millions of people, legitimately throughout the United States. You could sell a home to somebody willing to relocate or something like that.
Sure.
It is it's a more narrow industry in that way, because we would have the contact information. If we think it's a good McDonald's site for somebody, we would just call the rep at McDonald's, and
Mhm.
if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. It would be more difficult for you, because how do you know, just from listing a home, that, wow, this person has, you're not going to have anybody with 3,000 homes like McDonald's has locations, where you
Right.
know exactly what it is for what that'll be a fit for them.
Right. Well, and interestingly, they would call it discrimination when I do have an idea of who the market might be for this particular house. So if I'm listing a 1,200 square foot ranch and I assume that it's going to be somebody who's 50 or older, I can't target 50 or older uh, base any longer, because they say that I'm excluding, 49 and under. And I'm like, I'm not excluding them. I just know that
I
this
just kind of cut to the chase.
yeah, I have no issue. I'd love
Yeah.
to sell it to anybody, family, single person, tall, short. I don't really care. I just know that if it's got 6 foot ceilings in the basement, it's not ideal for a basketball player. That's all. So, you know, um, so it's kind of funny that I get it, and I'm not saying that I understand how this came about and why we can't go after certain markets, but there are times when it's a little silly. I know what would happen if we were able to, but so yeah, but you're right. I mean, my buyer pool, people might see your house for sale on a whim and be like, I've always wanted to live over there. I'm just going to go buy that house. And like literally had not been thinking about it yesterday. No one's going to probably drive by a nice, beautiful building, landscaped and great parking lot and be like, I think I'm going to start a business in there.
Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm gonna close. I'm gonna close in 1 week.
Yeah, yeah, cash for sure. So, what's been like? I guess what's been some bigger trends, with buildings? Have people been again? I almost have to eliminate this current 9 to 12 month era, but I mean, feel free to factor it in. Are people looking for bigger buildings, smaller buildings? Does somebody like having a tenant next to them? If they're, some sort of operation, or do they prefer to be standalone? Like, what's kind of been the biggest thing you've seen in the last couple of years?
I honestly think these last few years, the investment market has been like bananas. I mean, if you could, if I had 10 apartment buildings for sale right now, they likely would be sold or under contract. I'm not saying necessarily by the end of the year. I don't know if I'm that good, but they would go quickly. I mean, as
Sure.
long as they're priced decently, that industry type has been bananas, and it was like that before COVID. It was like that during, and it still is. I would say industrial also really not affected. We're the same price points, the same types of users, the same activity we're getting on all of that stuff, just not affected in any way. When you talk about like the freestanding building versus multi-tenant, I'm actually seeing, just because of the fact the interest rates are so low, you're seeing a number of these owner users, people that run a business out of the building, not just as hold it as an investment. Seeing a number of them try to take on a little bit larger building than they necessarily need for their own use, so they can try to get a tenant in a portion of it to pay whatever percentage of their mortgage, and try to make it, lower their cost to operate. Um, I would say that everybody's kind of been down on office this year, but I've actually personally done more office investment sales this year than I have at any other point in my career. And I think that most of that just speaks to the fact that, if you, let's say an office building were to sell for like a plus or minus 8% return on your money, right? Based on before your mortgage, before any of this stuff. You get 8% on your money, then the interest rate at that time is 5%. And now the interest rate is lower by a whole percentage point. You have the same tenants, the same leases. Now all of a sudden you can afford, people can afford to buy that building and are actually making a better return than they were on it before, before this. Now that's not unwarranted. I think that that probably makes sense because there's probably more risk now, but it still hasn't really seemingly slowed down the investment market all that much.
Well, it seems like in general, there's more cash than people know, out there. Um, there's cash, in real estate. There's cash in investment real estate. There's cash in businesses. I mean, I know a few business owners that they basically said one thing that was fortunate for them was a surplus of cash that they've held on to, for one reason or another, and they were able to kind of get through certain times, this way. So I suppose that that's a good thing. Um, and to your point about investors, I think there's probably a still a good amount of guys on the sideline with a certain amount of cash. Maybe they still need a mortgage, but a certain good chunk to invest and move forward. So I do think you said earlier it's not all doom and gloom. There's obviously a lot of naysayers. We don't want to ever overlook the people that unfortunately have failed their business or have failing businesses. But you know, at the same time, there's still a decent amount of people out there that can do okay and have some opportunity, in the near future here.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. I think leasing in my experience this year, leasing has been slower, like significantly than it had been in years past. Sales have been up, and I think that kind of speaks to your point about just there was some cash in the sidelines. There seemingly was a window where there were some decent buys that were made, and yeah, again, we obviously at the end of the day, we just hope that we get out of the other side of this thing with it is the least amount of failed businesses or closed businesses that we possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. Um, have you had many, come back to you? Have you had many landlords saying, I'm losing my tenant, or I've lost them, or whatever, and I need this space filled?
Not really. I think at the beginning of this, kind of going back to that same retail center that we were talking about, we took the Art Van Pure Sleep space back there, but that had nothing to do with COVID. That was Art Van was
Right.
going out of business as a whole company. I mean, I've here and there. I mean, I have a little retail center I market down the street here that Subway is going to be vacating, but I've just thought there'd been an overabundance of Subways for years, and then you have like five other sub companies all come into the market at the same time. Someone
Yeah.
was bound to finish in last place there. I would say on the office side, maybe a little bit, just from people right now, or if their employees are working from home. Like for instance, I think tech maybe might be an industry type that their employees they could trim down some of the employees in the office. Most of the people that I know that are in office space are customer facing and couldn't effectively do that from home. Um, but no, I mean, in my experience, we really haven't taken that many spaces back because the landlords that I work with are mostly willing to work with their tenants in order to keep everybody in business and keep everybody happy.
Yeah, that's obviously good, and again, a big reason I want to be able to have this conversation and try to get it out there, and is because while you and I are still just one person each, so we can't represent the entire market. and we work exclusively in this area of Michigan, so we only represent this area of the market. Um, Michigan's been hit hard in many times. I mean, in the mid 2000s, we jumped on the recession, recession bandwagon, whatever, well before the rest of the country did.
Mhm.
And at the same time, some of our recovery, happened, and because it went down so bad, it kind of increased even more than some other states. And now we see the same thing with the business shutdowns and restrictions and schools and all this other stuff. We are different than many states. There's still plenty of states with similar or even worse restrictions, or more stringent restrictions is probably a better phrase. But there's definitely a lot of things to be concerned about, and hopefully, I know a lot of people certainly have decided to try and do more local things, but at the same time, there's only so much local that we can really do sometimes. And if your kid wants an RC car or a game system, there's not a lot of local shops to get those types of things from. So you're still spending a lot of money outside of local. And, so it's good to hear that it's not terrible, and that there's not really an expectation from your side, that it's going to be terrible. Um, you know, I don't know how you comment on that other than, just saying, yeah,
Yeah,
I agree, but
yeah. I mean, it's we, like I said earlier, we all had a crystal ball or could accurately predict how this will turn out. You know, then I don't know. I'd have to be on some sort of economic advisory committee or something like this.
you
Um,
interviewed on CNBC and not on Cup of Joe.
exactly, exactly.
So, uh,
But yeah, I mean, the hope is that there's been enough done so far that there's going to be further um, assistance, and that hopefully we can get some amount of the community back out into the what how many times we said normal this year, back into normal, and it won't be it won't have been too big of a blow that people can't get out of, and that's the hope.
yeah, yeah. I think in general that's the case. Again, I know of a business that closed. I never have looked at their financials, so I don't know if it was ever going to happen before all this happened. But I know for certain they weren't going to make it through. Because of all the closures, they basically have been closed all but maybe 2 months. So um, they're closing, and so I don't ever want to overlook those. But I think, coming back to your point about Subway, I mean, if you look into a Subway franchise, 20 years ago it was like the hottest thing out there, and therefore if you looked at it 10 years ago, they probably said, well, there's 16 Subways all within a 20-mile radius, and they kept changing their things. So I think when we look into this business thing, it would be great if people wouldn't look at it from a political standpoint, if they didn't blame it on a president or a governor or a congressperson, but they, tried to really understand more about what really happened, how to maybe help that person, and how to prevent it in the future. Because pointing fingers really isn't going to help. Understanding, was Subway a good franchise in the first place to be in that particular location, and what was their trend over the last 3 to 5 years, to understand, is that the reason, or is it COVID, or is it a certain blend, and this was like that final straw to break the proverbial camel's back.
Yeah, and it's easy. I guess it's easier to make that argument that maybe it wasn't because of these shutdowns for something like Subway or some, or especially if it's a franchisee with a few locations, that maybe their just books weren't the tightest before this whole thing. The times I guess you feel bad about it, or you just kind of wish that things were different, is when it is just a mom and pop just trying to survive, and weren't able to get a legitimate shot. And so that's why, again, our company manages real estate as well as obviously brokers, sale, and our management side was almost across the board that if there's some assistance that needs to be given, then we're not they're not in the business of losing money. We'll need to make some sort of lease amendment that will, it'll be paid back later on or whatever it is. But they nonetheless were absolutely on board with giving some sort of assistance where it needed to be given.
Yeah. Um, you kind of mentioned, South Lyon and Novi and Wixom and things like that. Any particular, areas or trends that you've seen, really take place that are kind of exciting, or anything? I know probably some stuff got put on hold, but anything coming up that is kind of cool for the area?
Yeah, so we work all the way out. My team actually is all the way out to like Farmington Hills, Southfield, basically all along the I-96 696 corridor, all the way out to Brighton now. Um, so I think the two that come to mind is we just closed last month, I believe it was, on Lion Crossings, which is right at Milford Road. It's on the west side of Milford Road, south of I-96.
Hmm.
We sold a 19-acre piece there that's going to be developed into, I think it's 300 apartment units on the west side of Lion Center Drive there. And then I'm told that about uh, 2 hours ago, we just closed on the sale across the street of the what will be Zott Chrysler. So in those pieces, I mean, we've worked on these for some time. I think those were originally slated. I think there was talk of a Target going in on one side. There's been talk over the years of other big boxes taking some of that. I mean, we're talking about 27 acres in total. And just the times, kind of going back to what we were talking about, the times did not match up for that. Those types of businesses, the development of them has slowed, and there's a lot of those big retailers that are closing stores more than they're opening them at this point.
Sure.
So instead of just trying to keep running our head into the wall, the developers could join in us. We got together and talked about some other alternative type uses for the property. And honestly, I think this multifamily thing is going to be awesome down there. I think it's going to bring a lot more people down into what New Hudson is calling like their downtown that they're trying to build. And these are not going to be inexpensive rental units. These will be people that have the money to be able to go out and afford a nice dinner, do whatever they need to do shopping wise. And no, I think that development, it's going to take 2 years probably to get built, but when it does get built, that's going to transform that area.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, obviously, I'm familiar with the area, and there have been some existing locations like the New Hudson Inn. There's been new locations like Novellas and Jana's. There's some area for growth. Obviously, there's a shopping complex for Walmart and Starbucks and Big B and those things. So I think it's a nice area to have some stuff, and there's plenty of room for growth for new industries and what other things. You know what I mean? So so that's cool. That's good to hear. I know I've heard rumors for the longest of time about things, and I guess it's because some stuff they have to submit to the city or the township, right? Their plans, and so you see things online. But I try not to uh, assume that what I read online is accurate unless it's coming from the person who's buying or selling the location. You can't assume those rumors are accurate. Um, what about, and I think this extends beyond us, when I see the lines at this place, I know that it's more than just the local community. Any insight onto the good old Irwin's Orchards? I know that's not your deal, but do you have any communication you're allowed to share?
No comment.
Okay.
No, I'm just messing with you. No,
That's fine.
I honestly, dude, I don't run point on that one.
Yeah.
I don't know anything. I can't confirm or deny.
Sure. Well, every year the
Blah blah
orchard
blah.
opens, and every year the orchard closes, and during that closure, there's somebody who's supposedly buying it, and everybody's upset about it, and it's not this, or it's not that, So, I mean, for the family, I hope they do and get whatever it is that they need to do and get. I don't know. I don't know the Irwins. I don't know if they're have again, the rumors are the rumors as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know. All I know is it's a great location to go, and I know it will be missed if it's not there. But at the same time, if they need to sell or they want to sell, I hope they're able to, and the right things go in. That's good for the community. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's
See,
one
my understanding is there's nothing going on there right now. So
sure, and it's certainly possible. I mean, there's so many things that um, could go in, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but and then I mean, it's a big area, so it could be retail, it could be subdivisions, and I know that's been a big topic. There, personally, I hope it's some retail because I think, well, I'm not against housing. Clearly, I think that we have a lot of housing. I don't know that we do or don't need more housing, but I feel that we do need more stuff to do, whether it be places to shop, places to eat, even a place to get gasoline. I mean, there's really not. If you get away from the downtown areas, there's not a gas station right there, and I think it's right off of 96. That would make sense. So I don't know. Something would be better than nothing.
yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. I honestly, in again, just leaving that area, yeah, I do think that to me, for a long time, it hasn't made much sense why there aren't more options that have grown kind of as the residential population has grown out there. Because Lyon, I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe one of the fastest growing communities in the state of Michigan for like 4 or 5 years running, and it seems as though the next step never really got taken. Now, again, we're hoping that maybe through this, new developments coming up by the freeway, that will spur some more future development. For instance, we still have 4 outlets up there that we're marketing that we picture probably going restaurant of some sort, just because there's no, like, again, there just seems to be so much demand, and rather than having everyone having to drive to Brighton or drive to Novi every time they want to go out and get dinner, it'd be nice to have some more local options, and I think that area needs it.
Yeah, I would agree. Um, Additional options. I mean, I love going to the places in town that I go to, but it doesn't matter what food I eat. I don't want to eat it, every weekend or every Tuesday night or whatever night that I eat out, right? So I would like just additional options. That's really all it comes down to, and more places to go. I mean, whether it be a big franchise or a local, boutique. I mean, again, what we have in town is pretty cool. A couple of the places, but you compare that to Howell, Milford, Birmingham. I mean, it's not, it pales in comparison. So there's definitely room for growth, and it won't all be in one concise little area, but that's okay. We don't need to be able to walk everywhere. I just want to be able to go places. So
Yeah, and not have to drive for 20 minutes, right?
yeah, yeah, and not have to take the money out of the community, right? I mean, it would make sense to keep it all here. So um,
Absolutely. Well, I think we talked about it a little bit offline, but ultimately there will be a new restaurant going in at the former Draft Street location downtown South Lyon. I don't know too much about the restaurant concept because the guy that bought it is not a restaurateur, from my understanding. So, but that will be another option. I knew that. I mean, obviously that had to always go restaurant, um, and we'll just see what they're able to do with it.
yeah, and kind of to your point earlier, as far as what it was already outfitted for, I mean, it would take quite a renovation for it to be not restaurant, right? I mean, there's already a kitchen and everything in place.
The hood, there's walk-in coolers, there's seating. I mean, yeah, literally, it would be reasonably turnkey. Hopefully, this whatever concept he puts in there changes the reputation of it.
Yeah,
I know that one's taken its lumps. So
yeah, I mean, it's obviously a great bar location, but at the same time, what will happen if it opens as a bar is people just assume it changed hands from one owner to the other, and it's the same place, even if it's completely different. So, you know, that's a that's a whole other area of marketing and things like that. That's really tough for people, I'm sure. Um, I mean, outside of that, man, I know this is probably a weird thing to ask for anybody else, but how do you like the new house?
oh, I love it. We love it. It's yeah, it's definitely allows our son to yeah. I know you remember the last time you walked through our old house that our toys were everywhere. You had to like basically hop and skip in order to get around a room. So yeah, we got some more room for him to play now.
Yeah, awesome. Eric, I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you sharing some insight on your industry as well as what's kind of going around and things like that. We're obviously approaching various holidays and stuff, so I hope you guys, have a great end of the year holiday. Stay safe and all those good things. Anything that I missed that you're like, oh wait, I wanted to make sure to get this out there?
Man, not that I can think of. Obviously, wish you and your family, happy holidays as well. And, hopefully this, I don't think it's going to be like a snap of the fingers when it turns over to 2021 from 2020, but hopefully everything gets back to normal. And that'll be like the 500th time I've said that this year. But hopefully we
Sure.
can, hopefully maybe when the bars open back up, we go grab a drink somewhere, Joe.
Absolutely. Hey, if someone needs space and they need to get a hold of you, what do we do?
I would call 248-476-3700 and ask for Eric.
Awesome. There we go. We're going to end on that note. We end on a good note. That's a good one, man. I appreciate it. Thanks again for your time.
Great. Thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
Bye.